The message came to Earth on a cold morning in November. It arrived not through radio waves or satellite signals, but through a beam of light that split the sky above Geneva. People stopped in the streets. Cars pulled over. Millions watched as something impossible happened above them. A ship descended through the clouds. It was silver and smooth, shaped like a teardrop, and it made no sound as it landed in the courtyard of the United Nations building. Security forces surrounded it within minutes. Soldiers pointed their weapons at the vessel. News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the scene to every screen on the planet. The ship opened, and Ambassador Cathari stepped out. She was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Her eyes were large and dark, without any white in them. When she moved, her body seemed to flow rather than walk. She raised her hands to show she carried no weapons, and the bioluminescent patterns on her arms pulsed with soft blue light. "I come with a request," she said. Her voice was strange, like wind through hollow tubes, but the translator device on her chest converted her words into perfect English. "The Galactic Concord needs Earth's help." Within an hour, she stood before the Emergency Assembly of the United Nations. Every world leader watched, either in person or through secure video links. Cathari told them a story that changed everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. The galaxy was full of life. Thousands of species had achieved space travel. Most of them had joined together in an alliance called the Galactic Concord, a union dedicated to peace, trade, and the sharing of knowledge. For 10,000 years, the Concord had maintained stability across 100,000 worlds. But now they were dying. The Vreth Dominion had emerged from the dark spaces between stars. They were a coalition of predator species who believed that conquest was holy. To them, war was worship. They took worlds not for resources but for glory. They killed not out of necessity but out of devotion to their war priests, religious leaders who taught that the strong had a divine right to consume the weak. Cathari showed them images, cities burning, refugees fleeing through space, ships torn apart by Vreth weapons. The Concord's member species were scholars and artists, traders and philosophers. They had evolved beyond violence thousands of years ago. They had forgotten how to fight. The Vreth had not. In 3 years, the Dominion had conquered 17 star systems. They had killed billions. The Concord's automated defense systems, designed to stop pirates and accidents, were useless against a coordinated military assault. Species that had not known war for millennia suddenly found themselves facing extinction. So the Concord had searched for help. They had sent scouts to primitive worlds, planets whose inhabitants had not yet joined galactic civilization. They looked for species that still knew violence, that still maintained armies, that still understood how to kill. They found Earth. "Your world is unique," Cathari said. "You have never known peace. In every generation, somewhere on your planet, your people are fighting. You train millions to be soldiers. You build weapons of terrible power. You study the art of destruction with dedication that we find disturbing, but also necessary." She paused, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to a darker shade. "We are asking you to send your warriors to fight for the Concord. In exchange, we will give you everything. Faster-than-light travel, cures for every disease that plagues your species, clean energy that will solve your environmental crises, full membership in the Concord with all the rights and protections that includes. Your people will never hunger again. Your children will inherit the stars." The assembly hall was silent. Then the questions began. How many soldiers did they need? Thousands at least. Tens of thousands if possible. The Concord would provide transportation, weapons, and training on advanced technology. They needed bodies willing to stand between the Vreth and the innocent. What happened to previous warrior species they had recruited? Cathari's patterns dimmed. The Thornaki berserkers had charged into battle with magnificent courage. They had died almost to the last warrior. The Yulin heavy infantry had held defensive lines for months. They too had fallen. The Vreth were not just strong, they were smart. They learned, they adapted, they won. Why should Earth succeed where others had failed? Kethari did not have an answer to this question. She only had hope. The debate lasted 3 days. Nations that had been enemies for generations found themselves on the same side. Religious leaders who had preached peace their whole lives called for holy war against the alien threat. Protesters filled the streets, some demanding that Earth refuse to get involved in galactic conflicts, others demanding that humanity answer the call. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Every nation agreed. Earth would send soldiers to fight for the galactic conquered. The announcement went out across the planet. Military recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Young men and women lined up around the block, eager to become humanity's first interstellar warriors. They imagined glory. They imagined heroism. They imagined becoming legends. But behind closed doors, the real decisions were being made. General Miriam Akhafar, a woman who had spent 30 years in operations that did not officially exist, gathered the heads of military intelligence from 12 nations. They reviewed the footage had provided. They studied the Vreth tactics, their command structure, their religious beliefs, their psychology. And General Akhafar came to a conclusion that would change the course of galactic history. "They don't need warriors," she said, pointing at the holographic display showing Vreth battle formations. "Warriors die, warriors lose. The conquered has sent warriors before, and the Vreth have killed them all." She turned to face the assembled officers. "What they need, whether they know it or not, is something else entirely. Something humanity has perfected over thousands of years of killing each other. Something the Vreth have never faced." She smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. "They need executioners." The selection process began the next morning. General Akhafar established her headquarters in an underground facility beneath the Swiss Alps. The location was chosen for its security and its neutrality. What happened here would not belong to any single nation. It would belong to Earth. She gathered the most dangerous people on the planet. The public recruitment centers continued to operate. Young volunteers were processed, tested, and sorted. The best of them would indeed be sent to the conquered, organized into regular military units that would serve alongside Allied forces. They would be Earth's visible contribution to the war effort. But Akhafar was building something different, something hidden. Her recruiters traveled to places that did not appear on any official map. They visited prisons where certain inmates had been held in isolation for decades. They contacted retired operatives whose names had been erased from every database. They reached out to criminal organizations, offering deals that no court would ever approve. From Russia came men who had spent years in the frozen wastes of Siberia, learning to kill silently in temperatures that would stop a normal heart. They were Spetsnaz veterans, specialists in what their commanders called wet work. Their official records showed nothing remarkable. Their real records did not exist. From Israel came women who had hunted terrorists across 3 continents. Mossad had trained them to blend into any culture, speak any language, and eliminate targets that armies could not reach. They were ghosts who left no trace. The Americans sent their sad SOG operators, soldiers who had overthrown governments without firing a public shot. They were experts in psychological warfare, in turning populations against their own leaders, in making death look like accident or disease. China contributed its snow leopard commandos, fighters trained in the high mountains of Tibet where the air was thin and mercy was thinner. Britain sent the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, specialists in long-term infiltration who could live among enemies for years before striking. But Akhafar did not stop with official military forces. From Mexico came men who had worked for the cartels, enforcers who had turned murder into industrial practice. They knew how to send messages written in blood. They understood that violence was a language, and they were fluent in every dialect. From Japan came former Yakuza, criminals who had built empires on fear and precision. They brought with them an understanding of ritual, of honor, and of the terrible things that could be done to those who violated either. From a dozen African nations came survivors of wars that the world had tried to forget. Child soldiers who had grown into men and women with skills that no peace could erase. They had learned to kill before they learned to read, and they had never unlearned the lesson. 3,000 individuals were selected. They came from different countries, different cultures, different backgrounds. Some had served their nations with honor. Others had committed crimes that would have earned them execution in any court, but they all shared certain qualities. They were patient, they were precise, they did not hesitate. And they understood something that the conquered's previous warrior species had not. Violence was not about strength or courage. It was about will. The willingness to do whatever was necessary, to cross whatever lines needed crossing, to make the cost of conflict so terrible that enemies would rather surrender than continue. Colonel Hassan Webb was chosen to lead them. On paper, Webb was a logistics officer who had spent his career managing supply chains. His military record was spotless and boring. In reality, he had commanded 17 operations across Syria, Yemen, and places that had no names. He had never lost a mission. He had never been identified by enemy forces. His targets simply died and the world moved on. Webb gathered his new command in the underground facility. He looked out at 3,000 faces, each one carrying secrets that could start wars. He did not give them an inspiring speech about glory or heroism. He gave them the truth. The conquered thinks they need warriors, he said. They want brave soldiers who will charge enemy lines and die with honor. They have tried this before. It has not worked. The Vreth are not mindless beasts. They are intelligent predators. They study their prey. They learn. They adapt. Throwing bodies at them only feeds their god. He pulled up a holographic display showing the Vreth command structure. We are not going to fight their war. We are going to fight our war. We will not meet them on battlefields. We will not give them the glorious combat their religion demands. Instead, we will teach them what humanity learned long ago. The display changed to show images of Vreth leaders, their families, their holy sites. There is nothing sacred in war. There are no rules that cannot be broken. There is no target that cannot be reached. We will kill their officers in their beds. We will destroy their supplies before they arrive. We will murder their priests in their temples. We will show them that fighting humanity is not a war. It is suicide. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Some of you have done terrible things. Some of you have been called monsters. Good. The Vreth have never faced monsters before. They have faced warriors who died with honor. They have faced soldiers who followed rules. They have never faced people who will do whatever it takes to win. Webb smiled, and 3,000 killers smiled back. Welcome to the unit. We ship out in 72 hours. Your mission is simple. End this war by any means necessary. Make the Vreth understand that humanity is not prey. We are the thing that hunts the hunters. The training began immediately. The conquered had provided advanced weapons and technology. The humans learned quickly. Within a week, they could operate alien equipment as easily as their own. But the conquered instructors were troubled by their students. These humans did not train like warriors. They trained like predators preparing to hunt. They asked questions that no warrior species had ever asked before. Where did Vreth officers sleep? How were their families protected? What supply routes did they use? What did their priests believe? What did the Vreth fear? The instructors did not understand why such questions mattered. They would soon learn. The transport ship carried the human contingent across 300 light-years of space. They arrived at Varath 7, an agricultural world that grew food for a dozen conquered systems. The planet was green and peaceful, covered in endless fields of alien crops that swayed in gentle winds. Its people had never known violence. Now violence had come to them. The Vreth fleet hung in orbit, a cluster of black warships bristling with weapons. They had attacked twice already, testing the planet's defenses. Each time, conquered forces had pushed them back, but at terrible cost. The defensive lines were thinning. Another major assault would break through. The Allied commanders welcomed the human contingent with relief. Finally, reinforcements. Finally, warriors to hold the line. They assigned the humans to defensive positions along the northern continent, where intelligence suggested the next attack would land. Colonel Webb accepted the assignment politely. Then he asked for a private meeting with the Concord's military liaison. Tullus was a being whose species communicated through changing colors in their skin. When Webb entered the meeting room, Tullus was a confident shade of blue. By the time Webb finished speaking, Tullus had turned a color that the human translator could not properly render. Webb did not want defensive positions. He did not want to hold lines. He wanted information. He wanted the location of every Vreth command vessel in the system. He wanted the names of their officers and the coordinates of their home colonies. He wanted the flight schedules of their supply convoys. He wanted to know where their war priests conducted their religious ceremonies. He wanted the names of their families. Tullus turned a shade of horrified purple. Such information is irrelevant to defensive operations, he said. We are here to protect Varath 7, not 2. Why would you need to know about their families? Webb's second-in-command stepped forward. Yuki Tanaka was a small woman with a calm face and eyes that revealed nothing. She had spent 15 years doing work that the Japanese government refused to acknowledge. Now she activated a holographic display. During our transit, my team intercepted and decoded Vreth communications, she said. We know that Admiral Vrekesh commands the enemy fleet. Her mate and 3 offspring live on a colony world called Thresh 4, 2 systems away. The colony has minimal defenses, 1 patrol ship, a small garrison. Tullus's colors shifted wildly. The high priest directing this campaign is named Torvash, Tanaka continued. He visits a specific shrine on the 7th day of each cycle to conduct purification rituals. The shrine is located on a moon in the next system. It has no military protection because no conquered species has ever attacked a religious site. She changed the display to show supply routes. Vreth convoys travel without escort. They have done so for 3,000 years because no enemy has ever targeted logistics. Their captains follow predictable schedules. They stop at the same refueling stations. They take the same routes every time. Tullus struggled to find words. What you are suggesting? It is not done. There are rules, conventions. Even in war, certain targets are protected. Families, religious figures, supply personnel. These are not combatants. Webb leaned forward. You have followed these rules. You have fought with honor. You have sent warrior species to die on battlefields while the Vreth killed billions of your civilians. How has that worked out for you? Tullus had no answer. The Vreth do not follow your rules, Webb continued. They slaughter entire populations. They burn cities. They exterminate species. But you have decided that certain targets are off limits and you expect us to do the same. Why? Because we are civilized. And they are not, so you will lose. Eventually, the Vreth will break through every defensive line. They will take Varath 7. They will take the next world and the next. And your civilization will die, holding on to rules that your enemies never agreed to follow. Webb stood and walked to the window. Outside, the beautiful fields of Varath 7 stretched to the horizon. Humanity has spent 10,000 years learning a single lesson, he said. War is not a game with rules. It is survival. The only rule that matters is winning. Everything else is a story we tell ourselves to feel better about the killing. He turned back to Tullus. You asked Earth for warriors. You got something different. We are not here to fight honorable battles. We are here to end this war. We will kill everyone who needs to die. Officers, priests, families if necessary. We will make the Vreth understand that fighting the conquered now means fighting us. And fighting us is not a war. It is extinction. Tullus was silent for a long moment. His colors slowly settled into a shade that the translator identified as reluctant acceptance. What do you need from me? Webb smiled. Everything you have on the enemy, every communication intercept, every intelligence report, every scrap of information about Vreth culture, beliefs, fears, and weaknesses. We will do the rest. 3 days later, the first strike team departed. Their target was not the Vreth fleet. It was not the invasion force gathering to assault Varath 7. It was a quiet colony world 2 systems away, where an admiral's family slept peacefully, unaware that the rules of war had just changed forever. Admiral Vrekesh woke to silence. This was wrong. Her personal guards always made noise, the soft clicking of their claws on metal floors, the rustle of their breathing, the quiet sounds of alert predators standing watch. Now there was nothing. She reached for the weapon beside her sleeping platform. Her claws closed on empty air. The weapon was gone. She opened her eyes and saw them. 2 figures standing in the darkness of her quarters, dressed in black, their faces hidden behind strange masks. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply watched her. Vrekesh was a veteran of 100 battles. She had killed enemies with her bare claws. She had never known fear. She felt it now. "How did you get in here?" she demanded. "Where are my guards?" One of the figures stepped aside. In the dim light, Vrekesh saw the bodies of her guards lying on the floor. Their throats had been opened with surgical precision. They had died without making a sound. The other figure placed something on her sleeping platform. Vrekesh looked down and felt her heart stop. It was a head, the head of her mate. The scales she had touched 1,000 times, now cold and still. The eyes that had looked at her with love, now empty and dead. "Your mate is dead," one of the figures said in perfect Vreth. The voice was calm, almost gentle. "Your offspring are next. Withdraw your fleet from this system within 1 rotation, or we will visit Thresh 4 again." The figure placed a small device beside the head. It was a communication unit, set to a specific frequency. "Call your superiors. Tell them what has happened. Tell them that the humans have arrived. Tell them that the rules have changed." Then the figures were gone. Vrekesh did not see them leave. One moment they were there, and the next she was alone with the body of her mate and the weight of an impossible choice. She did not withdraw. She was Vreth. She called for reinforcements instead. The reinforcement convoy never arrived. 17 supply ships were traveling through what had been safe space for a decade. They carried food, ammunition, replacement parts, and fresh troops for the invasion of Varath 7. They followed the same route they had always followed. They expected nothing. The human strike teams had been waiting for 3 days. They hit the convoy at a point where the ships had to slow down to navigate an asteroid field. Small, fast vessels darted out of hiding and attached to the larger transports. Boarding parties cut through hulls and moved through corridors with terrible efficiency. They did not take prisoners. They did not accept surrender. They killed every Vreth they encountered with quiet precision. The operation lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 17 ships drifted dead in space. A single cargo container was left behind. Inside were the bodies of every ship's captain, arranged in neat rows. Their eyes had been removed. A message was carved into the container's wall in Vreth script. "Every convoy, every time. The hungry ones are watching." The effect on the Vreth fleet was immediate. Supply officers began refusing assignments. Convoy schedules became erratic as commanders tried to vary their routes. Ships that had traveled without escort now demanded protection, spreading the fleet's resources thin. But the humans were not finished. High Priest Torvash was the most powerful religious figure directing the Varath 7 campaign. He had blessed the fleet before it departed. He had promised divine favor to the warriors who killed in the name of their god. He believed himself untouchable. On the 7th day of the cycle, Torvash traveled to his personal shrine on a small moon in the neighboring system. He went alone, as tradition demanded. The shrine was a sacred place where no violence had ever occurred. He never arrived. His transport ship's navigation system guided it into a decaying orbit around a gas giant. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, the ship had already entered the planet's crushing atmosphere. There was nothing left to recover. A message was sent to every war priest in the Dominion. It included a recording of Torvash's final moments, captured by a device that had been planted in his ship weeks earlier. In the recording, a human voice explained exactly why Torvash had been chosen and what would happen to any priest who continued to support the war. "Your God cannot protect you," the voice said. "Your guards cannot protect you. Your fleet cannot protect you. We are everywhere. We see everything. Continue this war and we will kill every priest, every officer, every leader who supports it. Not on battlefields, not in honorable combat. We will kill you in your homes, in your temples, in your sleep. We will kill your families. We will kill everyone you have ever loved. This is not a threat. This is a promise." 2 more war priests died that month. One was poisoned by a toxin that had been introduced into her food supply weeks earlier, engineered to activate at a specific moment. Another vanished completely. Only a recording was ever found, showing a human woman speaking to him calmly before the recording cut to static. The Vreth High Command issued a formal protest to the Galactic Concord. They demanded that these terror tactics be stopped. They cited conventions that had governed warfare for millennia. They called the humans war criminals, monsters, savages who had no place among civilized species. The Concord's response was brief. Earth has not signed any such conventions. Within 3 months, the Vreth fleet withdrew from Varath 7, not because they were defeated in battle. Their forces remained numerically superior, but their officers kept dying. Their supplies kept vanishing. Their priests kept receiving messages that described their deaths in precise detail. The Vreth had never known fear. They learned it now. They were not fighting an enemy. They were being hunted, and for the first time in their history, the hunters had become prey. The war did not end with a great battle. There was no final clash of fleets, no heroic last stand, no glorious victory that poets would sing about for generations. The war ended with a quiet meeting in a neutral station, far from any battlefield. The Vreth delegation arrived first. There were 7 of them, high-ranking officials who had survived the past year by luck and caution. They sat at the negotiating table with the stiff posture of predators who had suddenly discovered they were not at the top of the food chain. Ambassador Kethari represented the Concord. She had changed over the past year. Her bioluminescent patterns were darker now, more controlled. She had learned to read violence in the way beings moved, the way they watched each other. Humans had taught her that. Colonel Webb attended as an observer. He stood against the wall with a small team of his people. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their presence was the message. The Vreth negotiator was an elderly male named Krevash. He had been chosen for this task because he was one of the few senior officials still alive. He spoke carefully, aware that his words were being recorded, aware that history was watching. "The Dominion proposes a cessation of hostilities," he said. "We will withdraw to our pre-war boundaries. We will recognize the Concord's territorial claims. We will release all prisoners. In exchange, you will end these unconventional operations." He did not look at the humans as he said this. He did not need to. Kethari studied the proposal. It was everything the Concord had hoped for, more than they had dared to dream. The Vreth were offering complete withdrawal, total surrender in everything but name. "Why?" she asked. Your fleet is still powerful, your worlds are still intact. You have lost officers and priests, but you could replace them. Why are you surrendering?" Cravash was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something that might have been shame. "Because we cannot fight an enemy we cannot see. Because our officers will no longer accept commands that might make them targets. Because our priests are afraid to leave their temples. Because every supply convoy, every transport, every ship that leaves our space might be the next to vanish." He finally looked at the humans. "We have fought many wars. We have faced warriors from 100 species. We have never faced anything like you. You do not fight. You hunt. You do not seek glory. You seek extinction. Our soldiers would rather die in battle than live in fear, but you will not give them that choice. You kill them in their sleep. You kill them at dinner. You kill them in the places they thought were safe." His claws tightened on the table. "We are predators. We understand predators, but you are something else. You are patient. You are invisible. You are willing to do things that no species in this galaxy has ever done. We cannot win against that. We can only choose to stop fighting before you kill everyone we care about." The treaty was signed that day. The Vreth withdrew completely. The Concord's borders were restored. Billions of lives were saved. But not everyone was celebrating. After the ceremony, Kithari found Colonel Webb standing alone at a window, looking out at the stars. "You saved us," she said. "I should thank you." Webb turned to face her, but Kithari's patterns flickered through colors that had no easy translation. Uncertainty, gratitude, fear, something that might have been grief. "But I find myself wondering what we have brought into our civilization. You ended the war. You saved billions, but the methods you used—" She paused. "The Vreth were conquerors. They were brutal, but even they had limits. Lines they would not cross. Your species seems to have no such limits." Webb was quiet for a moment. When he answered, his voice was gentle. "You are right. We do not have limits. Not the kind you mean. When humanity fights, we fight to win. We do whatever is necessary. We cross whatever lines need crossing. That is how we survived on a world that was trying to kill us for 1,000,000 years." He turned back to the window. "You asked us for warriors. You wanted brave soldiers who would die with honor, who would follow your rules, who would fight your war the way you thought it should be fought. We gave you something different. We gave you ourselves. Survivors, hunters, predators who learned to hunt other predators." "And now," Kithari asked, "the war is over. What happens to your specialists?" Webb smiled, but there was sadness in it. "They go home. They try to live normal lives. Some will succeed. Most will not. They are what Earth made them. They cannot unmake themselves." He faced her again. "You can trust humanity, Ambassador. We chose to help you. We believe in what the Concord represents. A future where beings can live in peace, where knowledge is shared freely, where the strong protect the weak instead of consuming them. We want that future for ourselves. We are tired of being what we are." His smile faded. "But never forget what we are capable of. The Vreth will not. They will tell stories about humans for 1,000 years. They will warn their children about the monsters from Earth who hunt in the darkness, and those stories will keep them peaceful. They will keep everyone peaceful." He walked past her toward the door. "That is the gift we have given you. Not victory. Fear. The fear that if anyone threatens the Concord again, the humans will return. And this time we will not stop until there is nothing left to hunt." 50 years later, the galaxy knew peace. The Concord had grown to include 300 species. Wars had become legends. Violence had become a concept studied in archives, not experienced in life. And on every conquered world, in every school and library, children learned about the species from Earth. The strange beings who had saved the galaxy not with courage or honor, but with a willingness to do what no one else would do. A small plaque hung in the Concord's Central Assembly Hall. It had been placed there decades ago and never removed. It read, Earth maintains a standing force of 3,000 specialists. In 50 years, they have been deployed 7 times. Each deployment lasted an average of 4 months. There have been no repeat conflicts. Below it, someone had added a handwritten note. The humans do not send soldiers, they send a message. And across the galaxy, the message was heard. The hunters from Earth were watching. The peace would hold. Or else,